Okay. So imagine yourself. You're just this little old person. You know, you're doing your thing. And then all of a sudden, you get compressed. It'd be terrifying. But what is compression in music? Is it dangerous? Like being compressed in real life by an avalanche. So here's some examples of compression with certain sounds in music. This is a kick. Sounds like this without compression. And see, it's already quite a punchy kick. Sounds weird because how can a kick be punchy? I mean, those are like opposites. Okay, so here is the kick compressed. No compression. Compression. You can see that the kick has a lot more body to it. It sounds big and beefy. Okay, I just quickly made this guitar melody. So here it is without compression. See here, no fruity limiter. With compression. Without compression. With compression. So that was guitar with and without compression. So let's move on and see a vocal. So here is a vocal without compression.
Yo, she took my pride and she stomped it in the ground. Now you see my face, yeah, I'll be looking down. Just like I'm trying to find it, yeah. Talking to myself, I've been lying. Yeah.
So that was without compression. Right, here's it with compression.
Yo, she took my pride and she stomped it in the ground. Now you see my face, yeah, I'll be looking down. Just like I'm trying to find it, yeah. Talking to myself, I've been lying.
Now, I think it's good to put it in context of a mix. So here is it without compression.
Ooh. Yo, she took my pride and she stomped it in the ground. Now you see my face, yeah, I'll be looking down. Just like I'm trying to find it, yeah. Talking to myself, I've been lying. Yeah. Ooh.
So here's it with compression in the context of a mix.
Ooh. Yo, she took my pride and she stomped it in the ground. Now you see my face, yeah, I'll be looking down. Just like I'm trying to find it, yeah. Talking to myself, I've been lying. Yeah.
So that was vocal with and without compression in context of even a mix. So you can see that compression does make a difference. Now, it might not be noticeable at first what difference it does make. So what compression does is like, okay, so see, I have this pen here, right? I have another pen too. Okay, so I have two pens. I'll position them like this, okay? So say you got this pen. Like clearly, this pen right here is higher than this pen. Compression does is bring this pen down to this. It compresses it to basically what this is at. And then what you do after you compress it is you bring the gain up and they both get louder. But the lower parts are brought up to be with the high parts. So basically overall, compression makes your sound fuller, more rich, and fill in space and even the volume throughout your track. So compression is especially useful if you really want things to fill space and hit. So like in the context of the mix with the vocal, when the vocal is compressed, it made the low parts kind of meet up with the high parts. Not let the vocal get faded away in the mix, because if your vocal's too quiet, it can get lost. So what compression did is it brought those lower parts up to the high parts and then it stays like an equal volume, which makes it noticeable in the mix and stand out. So it's useful for vocals if your vocals are not standing out in the mix. It's good for getting drums to hit. So like if you have a drum, and say like drums are usually like, and they hit really hard at the beginning, and they just fade out because it's like an impact. What you can do is try to even out the volume of the drum. So basically it's gonna be louder for longer, which makes it hit harder because it's more prominent, it's bigger, it's fatter in the mix, so it hits harder. Now if you have an instrument, what I like to use it for on instruments is if it has a really sharp peak in the instrument, you can kind of bring that one down and even it out with the rest of the sound, and it can make your melodies more clean in certain cases. So not in all cases, but in some cases you might want to use compression for mixing instruments as well. I don't use it that often, but sometimes it's useful. So there are some big misconceptions about compression. I know when I think about compression, I'm like, yo, you're compressing like a file, and you go from like a WAV file, which is like one of the most high quality things you can render out for audio, down to like an MP3. And your audio is getting compressed, dude. You're gonna get artifacts, you're gonna get noise, all that dumb stuff. That's not compression in mixing whatsoever. Compression does not lose you data. In fact, technically speaking, it's reducing your dynamics. So there's less variance between the high points and the low points. So technically, you're losing data, but you can gain clarity because things are a similar volume. So overall, compression does not lead to any like artifacts or anything stupid like that. So some people also say it can create like an unnatural sound where like there's no dynamics in your audio. And I'm just talking about this, but it overall, just use it sparingly. And don't use it sparingly, but only use it when necessary. And you're not going to get an unnatural sound. Like you don't want to put compression on literally everything in your mix. Sorry, but no. Usually what you're going to be putting on is vocals. And if your drums aren't already mixed well and you don't get them from a kit, you might be putting compression on your drums to make them fatter and hit harder. So those are like the two cases where you're actually going to use compression, like for the most part. Now, I think it's only right we go into it and explain how we use compression. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the example with the guitar. In some cases you might want to use it. This is pretty aggressive compression for a guitar. So this is how you use compression. I think the Fruity limiter in FL Studio is just probably the most like clear way to show this. So you have a few things with compression. So what I'm doing is I'm letting the melody play so we can see it. Visualizing it, I think, is pretty important. Eventually, once you get an ear for it, you don't really have to see the waveform in order to compress it. But here we go here. So down here, we have a threshold. Now this is going to be the bottom point. This is where it's going to stop compressing. So everything above the threshold in decibels is going to be squashed down. So basically this is going to be, you're going to put this at the bottom of your high points. So in my case here, you can see with the threshold line here, it's hitting negative 18 dB. So in this case, it's going to be compressing everything above negative 18 dB. And then the ratio is how hard it's compressing it. So it's 1:1. That means so every 1 decibel at the beginning is still going to be 1 decibel. As you up it, say 2:1, for every 2 decibels of gain, it's going to become 1 decibel. So it's basically halving it. And same one here, 3:1, basically taking a third of it. And it's just a ratio. Okay. So compress it just a little bit, and you can see that the waveform has kind of shrunk because we've compressed everything above the threshold. Now, in order to compensate, I would just say forget the knee and forget the envelope for now. If you're doing well and everything, you'll start using the envelope and the knee. The knee is all the knee really does. So you have your curve. All it does is kind of like peak out the ratio as it goes farther. So like it basically makes a curve for it. Like if you make the knee backwards and it kind of like spikes it up, so it'll be like lower at the beginning and then actually bring it up at a certain point. So you can mess with the knee if you want. It's usually not that useful. I wouldn't really worry about it. Most people don't use the knee. So now you're going to take the gain and compensate for the lost audio, because you really did bring down the peaks of your audio. So your sound is going to be quieter no matter what. Your loudest points in your mix are now quieter. You lost your dynamics. You got to up the gain, or else your sound isn't going to be as loud. So you can mainly just mess with this mess with the amount of gain that you need, because it happens after all of these. Mess with the amount of gain that you need until you get what you want, and then you're fine. So here's what it is before and after the compression that we just did. So this one is with the compression, by the way. Now this is without compression. You can see like the guitar will like pluck, and then when it fades out, it like fades out much quicker without the compression, but with the compression, it's gonna fade out slower. Compression is very useful. And if you're gonna become a good mixer, you've got to know compression. It is the foundation to so many things in today's mixing age, in music production, in the modern era. It's really been around for a long time, compression, but now everyone's using compression, and you can really use it to fill out your sound and make it feel louder. I would just say master it, get it down. It's so important. So all right, so that's been it for today. Thank you for joining me on this compression tutorial. So I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.